countries of this product, and Germany and Sweden, our donors. And I hope that we will have enough time to have an interactive discussion with the audience, and in fact to pick your brains as we go back home. So let me now turn to our first speaker, Isabelle Durant, she's the Deputy Secretary General of UNCTAD. DSG, may I invite you to make your opening remarks?
Merci, Shamika. Je vais parler en français. Voilà, tout le monde s'équipe. Et donc, pour vous dire d'abord bienvenue à cet événement, je suis particulièrement contente de l'ouvrir parce que, arrivé récemment à la CNUSET, j'ai constaté que sur la question de l'e-commerce et de tout ce qui est de la digitalisation, ça fait très exactement, si j'ai bien compris, 19 ans, je dis bien 19 ans, que la CNUSET est en charge de travailler sur cette question. Et à l'époque, remémorez-vous où on en était il y a près de 20 ans sur les questions de digitalisation et d'e-commerce, c'était absolument pas intéressant. C'était considéré comme un sujet un peu vaseux, un peu bizarre. Qu'est-ce que ça allait devenir? Est-ce que oui ou non, il y avait une quelconque chance que la digitalisation puisse transformer, plus ou moins transformer notre économie? Quelques 20 ans plus tard, et je l'entends depuis 3 jours ici, mais aussi à Genève très régulièrement, e-commerce est devenu le sujet très à la mode. Tout le monde considère que ce sont tous ces services de plateforme qui aujourd'hui évitent la taxation ou évitent une série de dispositifs ou de secteurs qui ont été mis en place dans les pays développés. Ce n'est pas du tout le cas dans les pays en développement où au contraire on a besoin tout de suite et très vite d'outils pour justement dépasser l'absence ou l'insuffisance de services tels qu'ils étaient procurés. Et donc, en ce sens, c'est vraiment un outil de développement absolument passionnant et sur lequel je vais laisser ceux qui l'ont fait de près l'expliquer dans le détail beaucoup mieux que moi. Merci en tout cas.
Thank you, DST. It was indeed a very passionate opening remark. I think you really set the stage for us to take this forward. It is true that 19 years ago, we have been doing this for a long time. Here's Tobian sitting here. He's our expert. If you have a very difficult question, he's the one who's going to answer all of that. And we have been, UNCTAD has been doing e-commerce for a very long time when it was not fashionable. I think that's why I think we have comparative advantage today, because we have a very long-standing roots. So let me now turn to Ratnakar. Ratnakar, I mean, you know, all of you know, he's the Executive Director of the Executive Secretariat for the EIF. And he's a close partner of ours and, partner in crime, doing these rapid e-trade assessments. And also he's party to a very strong proponent of the e-trade for all initiative of UNCTAD. Please, Ratnakar, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Isabelle has, actually set the tone, set the stage for our discussion already. I would like to take this opportunity, first of all, being one of the co-organizers, to welcome all our speakers, distinguished speakers, as well as participants. And we are really happy to collaborate with UNCTAD as well as with the International Center for Trade and Sustainable Development to organize this event in the sideline of the ministerial conference. So I will just make 3 points, and then we'll hear from experts and the real owners of the e-commerce agenda that we are trying to pursue. E-commerce is not yet mainstream. There was a time that people even thought that e-commerce has gone mainstream, but it has not. There are several reasons to it. Only 7% of the total global population is shopping online. Even after such a huge increase. So there are pockets of prosperity, as in the development divide that we see, and huge islands of poverty. That's how I would like to frame this discussion. When we talk about prosperity, it is about the digital prosperity, being able to use this opportunity to take advantage. Then there is a digital gap, and that is the islands. I would like to refer to it as islands of poverty. While the size of e-commerce, is huge, and this is the figure that we keep referring to. I think, they might have updated figure also. The only figure that I have from you guys is 25.3 trillion. Maybe, there's a figure available for 2016 as well. Maybe Tobian can give us those figures, but this is what we are using. And 1 in 6 people in LDC is still not online. Even those that are online cannot use e-commerce for trading purpose. The excluded groups mainly include the least developed countries, of course, rural areas in least developed countries, women, because 50% of the women are less likely to be online and and also be a participant in the e-commerce sector, and small and medium enterprises. So this being the background, what we initiated, and this is a humble beginning, E-Trade Readiness Assessment, and it started initially by UNCTAD, and we joined later, much later, because you have the wealth of experience, that have been generated from the last 2 decades of your work in this area. The E-Trade Readiness Assessment that we have jointly initiated aims to move the needle towards inclusive e-commerce agenda that we are trying to pursue. Here is how we can do it. It identifies opportunities as well as challenges. UNCTAD and EIF initiated this partnership in April 2017. We've already completed 2 such studies, and 1 has been now handed over to the government. Samoa was already done, and I hope the participant from Samoa will be here very soon. And Nepal is completed. We have 3 in the pipeline: Solomon Island, Vanuatu, and Liberia. The challenges are real. Just looking at these reports, one can see that the challenges range from payment solutions to infrastructure and logistics to skill. When you talk about a skill, and there is a nuance, within the skill also. What I found out, during the discussion that we had recently in Kathmandu about a month ago was that, there are 2 types of things that we have to understand in relation to skill. There is one element is the availability of skill. Another element is the mismatch of skill. And we compare the example of Bhutan and Nepal there, and we saw it clearly that Bhutan, in the case of Bhutan, it was the problem of availability of skill, very limited skill available. In the case of Nepal, it was a question of mismatch of skill. Because 5,500, I think the PS from Nepal is going to give you the figures, 5,500 IT graduate every year in Nepal, but they are not absorbed into the job market because the kind of skill they have, and that was imparted to them from the university and institutions where they studied, is not fit for purpose for the real need of the private sector. So how do we overcome that challenge? It's also a challenge that we see. And then the finance is another problem that is everywhere. And above all, a unified, cohesive, and coordinated e-commerce strategy is missing in many countries. So what can and should be done? This is my 3rd point. One is, and this is something that I keep emphasizing, don't want to sound like a broken record, but keep emphasizing the aspects of national ownership. It is critical. Because when you talk about preparing e-commerce strategy, it has to be nationally owned. When you talk about policies and regulation, some of these things that we talk about and we identify as challenges, in order to remove these barriers, all you need is a stroke of a pen. The minister can sign a decree and say that this is what you should do. I mean, of course. But then if you have to go to the parliament for the legislation, that's a bit of a challenging process. So some of the things, all you need is a political will. Beyond that, you don't need anything. And for the political will, you have to have national ownership. And then if you have national ownership, there's a possibility of government putting in resources, and resource commitment will then come from the government. That is the soft side of it. But the hard side, which is very difficult, it is not the challenge, these hard side of the discussion that we need to have here, in relation to infrastructure, in relation to trade facilitation, logistics. These are not the challenges endemic to e-commerce transaction. These challenges are faced also by the brick and mortar industries and brick and mortar traders, right? So, but when we look at these huge challenges, on the hard side, the infrastructure and all this huge investment. Just one example that I was sharing yesterday, and then I want to repeat it today as well. It requires $40 billion in investment in order to bring all the LDCs, into the 3G network. That looks simple, but it requires investment. Aid for trade could be potentially helpful, but it's not going to be enough because only 2% of the aid for trade provided to LDCs go to information and communication services sector. That's very, very limited. And therefore, the government, private sector, and multilateral development institutions such as the World Bank, such as the Regional Development Bank, have a major role to play. EIF also has a role to play, and let me explain what EIF has done and what can potentially be done in order to help these countries to be better integrated into the e-commerce framework. Bhutan, one example that I want to cite, because this is a favorite example. UNCTAD conducted the trade readiness assessment, and then we picked up some of the points, there in the document. We had a discussion, and Hang Tran, I want to recognize her contribution, was involved in designing the proposal, working together with the government of Bhutan to incorporate some of the recommendations of the e-commerce readiness assessment. The proposal was developed. We supported them, 1.5 million, very small contribution, nominal contribution, nonetheless important. And as a result of which they have already started, going online. And we are happy to, we all should be proud, the e-commerce community should be proud to note that the potato auction that they used to have in a kind of a, manual setting, now this has gone digital, and they have launched the potato auctioning online platform already. And this is already an achievement, and actually it makes everybody happy, actually. And the other similar project now we are thinking of supporting in Rwanda, so we are in the process of doing that. But the support that we provide are merely catalytic in nature. Those 40 billions and 120 trillion, we don't have that much of resources, and this has to be mobilized from elsewhere, for which we can play, again, a catalytic role by providing various kinds of support, such as project preparation grant. The final point on this particular what can and should be done, I want to just leave you with a question. Is it better if we work within the framework of a regional cooperation or cooperate with our neighbors to push this agenda? Maybe, this is an idea, and this is something that we should start thinking. 27% of the regional trade agreements that are notified to the WTO contain some provisions or the other related to e-commerce. And of course, that's not a huge, percentage, but it's still substantial. And cooperation, regional cooperation helps to enhance the infrastructure capacity, the capability in the on the logistics front, on trade facilitation, and maybe on payment solution. We can agree. A few regional trading arrangements can agree to a modality for a regional payment solution. This could be a small beginning and could potentially have a big impact in the future. So I'll leave all of you with these 3 comments that I wanted to make. Thank you very much for providing this opportunity and partnering with us.
Thank you, Ratnakar. Thank you so much. I think there's a lot of food for thought. I think we will be, in the process of picking your brain, I'll come to you to comment on some of the ideas that Ratnakar has raised. So now it's my turn, and in fact, I have to do a PowerPoint, and my friend Ratnakar tells me this is the slow death by PowerPoint. So I'm going to do my PowerPoint.
Then we need to run away.
Yes.
No, it's here.
Okay, so that's our title. So what I'm going to do is a bit more background to the project and also highlight some findings for the first 4 assessments that we have done. And then we will, so we will then want to have a discussion with you. So as most of you are aware, the ET Ready Assessments is a spin-off from the E-Trade for All initiative. And E-Trade for All initiative is a multi-stakeholder initiative aimed at we call it the connecting the dots, and make the delivery of assistance to developing countries more efficient and transparent. In fact, it covers 7 areas. I should be going back. 7 areas. And they are here, the e-commerce, the readiness assessment, the strategy, the ICT infrastructure, the payment solutions, logistics, skills, awareness, and so forth. And the E-Trade for All initiative now has 27 partners. And with the WIPO, this is the World Intellectual Property Organization, just being the most recent partner to the initiative. And I'm also very proud to say that we also have more than 30 private sector contributors to the so-called Business for E-Trade Development. And this family keeps growing. There are 193 countries out there to benefit from the initiative. And there's one platform. And what the whole idea of this platform is a clearinghouse. And those who need assistance to connect with those who can provide assistance. And this is, in fact, and to share experience. And in fact, this is already happening. And when we launched this was very launched in this year, in April. And we already have lots of requests through the platform. And I think some of you were there in Nairobi when we were launching this in 2016. And then last April at our e-commerce week, we released the platform. And then the whole point is to have a clearinghouse, the beneficiaries to come and see what the international organizations are doing, where the donors can help, and where the experts are, and where the private sector can come together. So I think because it has been a very extremely good partnership with all organizations, I think Ratnakar is a big proponent of the platform, and we have been able to really establish this whole idea of connecting the dots. Now, as I said, ET Ready is basically a spin-off of the E-Trade for All initiative, and it is called a rapid E-Trade readiness surveys, and they are done for least developed countries. They are done quite fast to assess the strength and weaknesses, and they are done for all the 7 key policy areas: the strategy, infrastructure, payment system, logistics, skills, legal systems, and awareness. And in fact, the assessment comes under the strategy part. So the idea to do the assessment, then hopefully the country then would begin the process with a e-commerce strategy. Now, so far, Sweden, Germany, and the Enhanced Integrated Framework, EIF, have supported the project financially, and we are very thankful, as I mentioned earlier, and also our DSG mentioned, the potential is enormous, and the window of opportunity, because this is a technology that is moving very fast, and the window of opportunities out there for developing countries, and especially LDCs, could close quite fast too. So that's why we want to, get the countries moving with E-Trade in E-Trade. Now, let me take you through just to give you what exactly it is. The whole point of the ET readiness is to assess the country's strengths, weaknesses, gaps, and opportunities in the 7 policy areas I mentioned. And then also I think that this whole exercise is just not an exercise done itself, but it also fosters partnerships. In many cases we saw in countries, this is the first time different stakeholders came together to have a discussion on e-commerce. And that itself is a big thing. these different partners, different ministries, because they are done every ministry has some say in e-commerce. And for them all to come together with the regulators, private sectors, just to be in one room was a big thing. And the main outcome is to identification of priority actions that could then be supported by the national governments and partners and so forth. I will showcase some of those things that we have done. I just wanted to also mention that this is not some ad hoc activity that we are doing in UNCTAD. It's a demand-driven product. So the minister has to write to our Secretary General asking for e-trade readiness assessment, and that's when we start working on it. And it is to provide a quick and basic analysis. That's why it's called a rapid assessment. And as we mentioned before, it's been done for the Bhutan, Cambodia, Samoa, and Nepal. And in the pipeline, you see on the blue column there, we have Myanmar, Laos, PDR, Senegal, and Liberia. And 2018, we have 15 to 20 LDCs will be assessed in 2018 and 2019, and that's the hope. Now, let me take you through very quickly. I think just wanted to mention, and we just received, I think just yesterday or day before yesterday, we just received a request from Afghanistan for ET readiness assessment. So let me just take you through some of the findings, because it's very interesting, because they are very different. The country context is so different. As Ratnakar mentioned, the issues are different. So here we looked at the bottlenecks for the use of e-commerce. So in Cambodia, for example, they came up with the inadequate. This is the stakeholder interview. So we have these huge stakeholder interviews we do in the countries. So look at those bars up there. This is inadequate ICT infrastructure. Infrastructure came as the first one, and the logistics, and then the weak legal regulatory framework for e-commerce. So those are the big things that came out in the Cambodia assessment. In Bhutan, as Ratnakar mentioned, it was the lack of ICT skills, exactly, because it comes through so clearly. It's the ICT skills and the lack of knowledge and awareness about e-commerce and the ICT infrastructure weaknesses. You see, once you think, you walk into an LDC, they would have the similar issues. They are not. They are they are different. So that's why we need to do this assessment, so we can prioritize, where to intervene, where to have interventions. Now, let me look at the e-commerce priorities in Samoa. We just looked at the areas that should receive technical assistance. So these are the ones they mentioned: the technical assistance in the areas of ICT infrastructure and strengthening the legal regulatory framework. And this legal regulatory framework comes up again and again in all LDCs that we work with. Now, let me also look at, go back to Nepal. So what we do is, we are not just looking at these main components, but we then go underneath the main components. Now, look at the main policy areas, for example, in Nepal, under trade logistics. And here, they are talking about their priorities are improving the availability of online payment methods. This is something exactly what you said. And implementing a single window, because that's the logistics angle of it. Single window has come as a big thing that in logistics. And reviewing the minimus customs regime. So what we do is then, we do a final action matrix. I think you have the ET ready assessments for some of the countries. What we do is, this is, I'm looking at, you're just looking at the Nepal assessment. It highlights then the e-commerce. This is this table is about the e-commerce strategy formulation component. So this matrix here describes the kind of action that is proposed under this pillar of the strategy, and what expected results could be derived if the action is undertaken. And then you have a prioritize. It has been prioritized, whether it is high or medium or low. And then, of course, also the possible partners that could help the government to implement the strategies. In fact, in this sense, this matrix under all the 7 pillars is basically a roadmap to empower the governments to make better use of the e-trade for all online platform, and also to engage with, in a dialogue with donors in the country. So here I'm very pleased to note, you see, as I said earlier, it's an assessment. It's an assessment. What you do with the assessment is what is important. And here I'm very happy to say that how EIF came through in Bhutan. Once the Bhutan has done the assessment, then the EIF came and said, okay, let me now, I had a discussion with Bhutan, the priorities, and the EIF funded some of the priorities. And that's what we would like to see more and more. Once the assessments are done, once the country has ownership and prioritize these actions, and we would like then the partners to come on board and work with member states to take some of these things forward. And in fact, we are ready to work with the member states, LDCs, that we are doing this ET readiness assessment to have this, to bring the partners together. This is something that we would like to, if you need us there in your capitals to do a donor coordination discussion or a donor table, and we are here for you. So let me just, interesting to look at some of the common to all assessments. Vastly, what we saw is, there's no one cookie cutter approach. Countries have different strengths and different weaknesses and different priorities. But there are some things that's coming out as very, clearly kind of a common threads across all 4 countries. Look, all countries lack a shared vision and strategy for e-commerce development, and this is a priority. I think you need to begin with a strategy and then break the strategy down into to actions and what needs to be done and who is going to do that and all that. And that's the beginning of that journey, and that was missing in all our countries that we looked at. And cash on delivery is the dominant mode of payment for e-commerce. And this is, I think, central banks are grappling with this issue, the e-payment systems, and ICT skills are inadequately featured in education curricula. It's exactly what you said. Yes, you do have skills, but maybe there are not the skills that you need to thrive in this kind of environment. So we also, even though this is a rapid assessment, we do have very tailored recommendations. Okay, so let me give you a couple of examples here. We have Cambodia. It was the payment solution, and working with the National Bank of Cambodia has kind of committed to work on these issues. And Nepal to adopt and enforce cybersecurity standards across domestic and international e-commerce service providers. And Samoa, one of the very specific recommendation to Samoa was to do the pre-clearance of goods a day before arrival for all shipments. And that would have done a lot of services when they push e-commerce agenda forward. So let me just, before I bore you to death, as Ratnakar told me, let me now just look at the way forward. E-ready is only a first step. So implementation is key. Anyway, that first step is necessary. You always have to begin from somewhere. So assessing what is needed and what are the strengths and the weaknesses and what needs to be done, and having a roadmap is a good thing. But then you need to be on the road and with the map. And I think extremely important is the national ownership. And if there's no national ownership, and especially because these issues cut across many ministries, if there's no national ownership, I don't think there's no beginning of this journey. And that's why it's extremely important when we did this work to bring all the partners into one room, all the stakeholders into one place, and begin a discussion in the country was as important as doing the assessment and coming up with the recommendations. So I also would like to say the E-Trade for All platform is in fact to do this thing, to identify the needs of countries and to match the countries with those who have the ability to fulfill these needs. And then, of course, the donor commitment will need to be scaled up. As I said, there's a potential; it's huge, and we don't want to see yet another revolution, technological revolution, bypassing LDCs. So this is a journey that we would like to go with all of you together. So in that tank, this tool, ET Ready, is to help there to connect the dots across ministries and between national governments and partners and private sectors and so forth. So let me stop there, and I hope that I added a little more food for thought for the discussion that we are going to have. Thank you. Thanks. So let me now go back to the moderation of the thing. So I'm now turning to our panel. We have a very distinguished panel here. We have Mr. Chandra Ghimire, the Secretary of the Ministry of Commerce in Nepal. And we have Mr. Dominik Ziller. He's the Director General of International Development Policy at the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development in Germany. And at the very end, and then I have just next to him on his right is Mr. Magnus Ryden. He's the Deputy Director General for Trade at the Swedish Ministry for Foreign Affairs. So let us begin our discussion. So let me turn to, we are waiting, we hope to have our Ms. Noumea Simi here, but I don't know, I think maybe, this is a big place, it can also easily get lost. But until she comes, let me go to Mr. Ghimire. So tell us, how do you view the potential of e-commerce in your country? Mr. Ghimire.
Thank you, Shamika. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude because very timely and contextual, very contextual issues now we are discussing on, and you have invited me, and somehow I managed today. I survived, in fact. I too had lost on the way, and somehow I managed, and finally I'm here along with you and in front of you all. First of all, I would like to assure, especially the Madam you, regarding the use of the document what we have produced. It won't be safely kept in our dusty cupboard. We'll go in concrete action and make some visible result down some years if we look forward. And the second thing, what I would like to say is the time has brought in series of challenges, and one of the challenges, let's say biggest challenge is now we are facing or posing digitalized trade regime or era, whatever term we love to use or utilize. And this is where now we are living in, which is time-wise 21st century. So what sometimes I feel is it has come with a very strong force, the digitalization process. Just what had happened some 200 or 300 years back, the Industrial Revolution. So it's coming up very strongly, no doubt at all. And while saying this, I'm recalling one very famous economist. She has written one beautiful book some time ago. I had, during my travel, read that book written by Pietro Rivoli, and the title of the book was The Travels of a T-Shirt. If you haven't yet, please grasp it and then enjoy the book. There is one instance, beautiful instance. It's sometime the instance she has picked up from 1890s, sometime that time around. And the context was from UK, I mean British the society. What had happened, cotton, it was started coming in from India and China. And basically in British, it's hugely from India. And there was a strong group, they were resisting the arrival of, I mean the incoming flow of cotton. It was very new then. And the resistant group was woolen group. So they were outrightly against, outrightly. And it was a very emotional time there. They protested, they resisted, and then Parliament, British Parliament, then they enacted one after another multiple acts to impose people, okay, you have to, such and such condition, you have to compulsorily use the woolen instead of cotton. So that way they try to discourage the incoming flow. But what happened finally? Consumer, I mean the market, they got a best choice. Why? Because till that time, there was forced choice, limited choice, only woolen, whether it's inner wear or outer wear. People had only that choice available. And then when cotton arrived, they found suddenly one fresh morning, beautiful item, very soft, and very climate friendly. And then they started running after that, that cotton. And this way, that replaced the dominance of woolen item. So what I am trying to say here is, sometime in a certain time interval, something happens and we have to accept. But there is a big but that I would like to tell you. Before coming over here, time permits? Just give you some highlights. Before coming over here from my country, then I was about to leave for this MC11. And I got invitation from your side, then started the varieties of literature. Some people I found, they were saying, oh, no. This is something the goods delivery can delivered by drones. That is one way of criticism or making it funny. No? And at the same time, there was another instances I came across. It might happen, Uberization of service delivery. That you know very well what exactly Uber means. And then some people I came across, what they were saying, servization of goods. It's a very typical word, difficult word even to me to understand. Finally, I managed it. That too, some people had used to criticize the emergence of this digital trade. And some my colleagues, they beautifully visualize the arrival of or emergence of this digital trade, terming the scenario as a Trojan horses. Trojan horses, you know very well, it's a very famous epic, probably from Greece time, civilization time. Anyway, that I'm not going into that detail. But this morning, I came across another beautiful terminology. One renowned figure, he has written one phrase, emergence of a digital laissez-faire. Anyway, that's everybody's right to visualize how it is and how gonna it affect positively or negatively. These all things is there around. But now I'm coming to my point. After this visualization, the prime question to me is, and that is what something I'm trying to communicate to you, taking this liberty, for whose benefits we are shifting towards this digital trade. That should be the prime question. And at whose cost? That should be another prime question. If until and unless, if we do not answer properly, these two answers might face, I don't know what would be unintended consequences or intended consequences, but might face serious resistances. Some hit we already have felt, even during this MC11 or pre-MC11, and we are likely to continue it even post the MC11. So giving this, finally I would like to come to these beautiful things what my previous colleagues, they have utilized the terms, inclusive e-commerce. If we can create a large space where everybody we can keep on board and everybody we can accommodate, then might be a viable. Otherwise, digital gap which is already there, the question of whose cost, what I already raised before, that could trigger a different round of trouble ahead, which is very, very potential. So we have to be very, very careful of how we can manage these things. And in that regard, especially my indication is the society which is so-called developed or very fast developing, they have to come forward very constructively so that others may not feel left far, far behind in the days to come. So this part we have to beautifully answer, we have to create, and we have to give it. Then only, so we might be in a position where everybody feel, yes, this is what we wanted to get over, and we are finally there. So thereover, we need to work a lot. And this initiation, what you have taken, I'm very sincerely express my gratitude, since you very time around, we too have conducted certain studies, part of our policy, part of accidental cases won't take place, and that unpleasant cases won't take place. So with this, now I conclude, and later I will definitely come back.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Ghimire. I think this is the big question, who is going to benefit and who is going to lose. I mean, in the context of MC11, let me tell you, and UNCTAD always has, doesn't matter what goes around here, UNCTAD is always there to provide you the safe place to have the discussion on development dimension of e-commerce. And we are up the road, and we are always there to have that discussion. I think there's, many times that we have seen in doing fisheries and so forth, the safe discussion began in UNCTAD first, before it went to the negotiation. So that's our role. Our role is to look at the development dimension. So let me now turn to our partners. Let me start by thanking both you, the Sweden and Germany, for your considerable support to the work in this area. And I would like to ask you, why do you think donors can and should support e-commerce development in LDCs, and in your opinion, what needs to be done? And Mr. Ziller, would you like to begin?
Yes, sure. I mean, you just mentioned it. Digitalization is going to happen anyway, and digitalization of trade is also going to happen anyway. And I admire the politeness with which the previous speakers avoided talking about what's going on in the Hilton. But frankly, I can't really understand why some countries are blocking to put this on the WTO's agenda. Especially, I can't understand why developing countries and even LDCs are blocking this from being put on the WTO agenda. While I understand very well that certainly everybody is keen to have results on the Doha round, this is going to happen anyway. And either it's going to happen with rules, or it's going to happen without rules. And if it's going to happen without rules, the developing countries, and especially the LDCs, will be on the losing end. So I can just encourage all of you to lobby for this being put on the WTO's agenda. As long as this is not the case, well, what we're doing here is even more important. Because, well, if we don't get a legal framework, at least we are trying to do everything we can in order to open up any opportunities that might be there. And to really dig deep and look into what's keeping investment from happening. And you know that in Germany, in its G20 presidency, we're very focused on making investments, especially in Africa, happen. And certainly it's most difficult with the LDCs, because potential investors, even investors from Africa and also investors from Europe, they look into where the larger markets are, where the purchase power is. And this will not necessarily be the LDCs. So the question is, what can we do in order to bridge this? And from our point of view, digitalization and electronic trade might be a part of the solution, as it brings markets closer together, no matter how developed they are, as long as these homeworks which you just defined here are done. And that's quick wins normally, and it's solutions which are not very costly to implement. So, but as you said, the first step always is to find out what the needs are, and then you'll be much better in proceeding. We also did the eSkills for Girls initiative under our G20 presidency, which goes very much in the same direction. And in our ministry's digital agenda, we recognize the essential need for digital skills development. It has become part of really the core of our activities, not just in Africa, also in other LDCs. It's about fostering the use of ICT in our whole development policy, not just in trade, also in education, in health, in financial systems, transparency and inclusion, aiding migrants, creating future-proof jobs, and even promoting human rights. You know how important digitalization and the internet is for the promotion of human rights. And we know that each country is facing its own challenges when it comes to digitalization, and therefore we try to avoid these one-size-fits-all approaches. That's also why this here is so valuable, because you do it country by country. And certainly you'll find out that there are a few quick wins that all the partner countries, or almost all of them, have in common. All the better, then we can strive for cookie-cutter solutions. But for many other things, this will not be the case, and there we need to dig a bit deeper and to come up with tailor-made solutions. So we are very happy to be one of the first sponsors of this. We are keen to continue, and we'd like to see many others joining in. We are sponsoring, I think, 16 of the reports that shall be undertaken and already are about to be undertaken, have been undertaken. And we hope that the very good, very encouraging beginning will be followed also by us and others making available the necessary funds for technical cooperation for the implementation of the reforms, which then necessarily has to be the second step when the first step shall not have been futile. So that's, in a few quick words from our side, why we are on board and what we think should be the main topics of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ghimire, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, just one thing. Since my previous colleague, he has one beautiful question he has raised. Why some are blocking the road? It's a serious question. To me, I'm not though representing the entire world, but to my understanding, what my feeling is, first of all, we want to become a player first, and then we will be ready to play the world game or World Cup, whatever it is. But that first, we need to develop our capacity. I mean, to play the ball or to play the game, number one. And number two, development agenda as far as concerned, there is the root why there is a sentiment and things are not really moving down, especially the water, what we had expected. The so-called failure of DDA or development agenda, that has significantly burned the heart. Thereover lies the problem, I think, second area. So these two, my quick response. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyway, this is a very passionate discussions that happens here and across the road, and it will continue. But for you to know that, you have our business is to do the development dimension, and you have the safe space at UNCTAD to have this discussion. So let me now get to Mr. Ryden and to ask you the same questions. What do you think donors can and should do to support e-commerce development in LDCs?
Well, thank you very much, Shamika, and thank you very much to UNCTAD and to Enhanced Integrated Framework for organizing this event, which I also think is, of course, very timely. And also thank you for showing the leadership. When it comes to Sweden and the support for the LDCs, of course, we have as a general general policy to work for inclusive growth and poverty reduction. And we see trade as an important vehicle here. And that is why, from the Swedish government, we support the enhanced integrated framework. We are one of the biggest, I think, second to the biggest donor. And that is why we support aid for trade, of course, very important as well. And that is also why we participated at UNCTAD 14 in Nairobi when you launched E-Trade for All. And as you say, Shamika, the E-Trade Readiness Project is very much I think you call it a spin-off. So for us, it was it was a natural step to support also the E-Trade Readiness Project. And why do we think that it's a natural spin-off, and why do we think it's important? Well, I would like to make 3 points. First of all, we see a rapid change now in the way we do trade. We see global value change. We see something we call servicification. We see digitalization, of course, and it will happen. I agree with my German colleague. It will happen. And we also see the women's economic empowerment. And we have been supporting, as you know, a gender toolbox. And I think this is a question, this could perhaps fit into the gender toolbox, which we are also supporting, which also is an UNCTAD initiative. Maybe we could link those two, because they serve the same purpose, I think. And secondly, I think supporting the E-Trade Readiness Project also fits in with the even more important contribution we are making to the SDGs and also to the Agenda 2030. By supporting the E-Trade Readiness, we are here to fulfill those very important goals. So we need to take a look at a broader picture as well, I think. Thirdly, I think it's very interesting, and thank you very much for handing out this. I promised someone in this room to show this, and that's why I'm doing it. But it's really interesting, I must say. And I have not had the time to go through all of it, but thank you, Shamika, for making the short version. And my experts in Stockholm are looking into this now. And they're telling me that they see a lot of interesting facts coming out of these reports and the other fours. And I think what they are telling me is that it shows that we really need to make further contributions in this regard. And I think you also, Shamika, raised the agenda already, which we have identified also back in Stockholm. We need to better assist policymakers.
Yes.
We need more partnership. And what the people are telling me is that key, and I think we also touched upon that, is that the national ownership is key. And also to engage with stakeholders and have a nationally supported agenda. And I also think this, you see a lack of e-commerce shared vision and strategy, and you also see the need for more ICT infrastructure, which is important. And finally, you said the way forward here, and I think you already set the agenda with your PowerPoint. What I would like to add is that you asked us, I think you asked us and my German colleague, how could we sort of encourage the donor community to make further efforts? And I think the answer is quite simple. This is what you need to show results to our colleagues and to other people in the donor community. And if you show results, well, then you will get extra support, I think. So this is very timely, and this is a very important event. And I think you've shown leadership by issuing these reports. And we will certainly, when we have read them, carefully come back with more comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for both of you for the commitment that you have made to us to be with us in the long haul, because these are not ad hoc products that you produce and you know, be done with it. We need to be with the countries in the long haul as they take these assessments forward in implementation. So thank you so much for being with us. So let me now turn to you and to ask you, because I think this is a session, as I said, you know, we also want to pick your brain, I mean, to enhance our own work, and also to see you sharing your experience and the challenges that you have seen in countries that you work in, and also how did you address these challenges, and what are the lessons that you have learned that would be relevant to LDCs. So you have the floor now. If nobody has a question, Torbjörn has to ask the first one. Yes, please. Please identify yourself.
Thank you, UNCTAD and ICTST for organizing this very interesting seminar. So we have benefited a lot. You know, for Nepal, I'm from Nepal, this is a solid achievement because the report has come and it has been handed over to the secretary. Well, I have not gone through it, but at a cursory glance, I found that, you know, you have made assessment on the basis of 7 specially developed parameters, which have everything to do with the electronic aspect of it, and the commerce aspect, the goods and services aspect, whether, you know, it is there to do that kind of business or not. You know, that part, I think it is missing. Well, for me, you know, at a cursory glance, well, I am not an expert in this area, so if there is anything mistake, you know, please correct me. Well, you know, in countries like us in the LDC, well, what we really lack is the development of real products and services that really can access to the international market. And, you know, it is only means. Yeah, it is only means. And, well, you are talking about the means, but we don't have, if we don't have the goods and services that is to be sold in the market, domestic or international, how are you going to really, you know, just fill this gap, address the gap? Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's a very good point. Yes, please, go ahead.
Merci, Madame la modératrice. Je me présente, je suis M. Sek, je suis le coordonnateur du programme du cadre intégré renforcé au Sénégal. Je remercie déjà tout le panel pour leur intervention. Et comme vous l'avez si bien annoncé, dans quelques jours, en début 2018, le Sénégal va recevoir la CNUSET pour le système d'évaluation. Alors, je n'ai pas encore lu le document du Népal, mais en fait, c'est sur le processus d'évaluation rapide. Bon, j'aimerais savoir, en fait, est-ce que cette rapidité, je crois que la mission dure 1 semaine. Est-ce qu'avec ce temps, vous avez en tout cas la possibilité de faire une évaluation aussi exhaustive pour permettre de dérouler une stratégie? Parce qu'après l'évaluation, c'est la stratégie. Et je me demande, est-ce qu'en 1 semaine, on peut faire une évaluation rapide? Il est vrai qu'on parle de e-commerce, il faut aller vite, mais je crois qu'aussi, il faut bien faire le diagnostic des États en matière d'e-commerce pour permettre au pays de dérouler une stratégie qui va dans le sens de la prise en compte des préoccupations des acteurs qui évoluent dans le e-commerce. Alors, c'est cette interrogation que j'aimerais partager avec vous et dire que nous serons très honorés de vous accueillir au Sénégal pour travailler donc, dans ce projet. Merci.
Definitely, we'll be in Senegal. Any other questions? And Torbjörn, would you like to address how rapid is rapid?
Thank you, and many thanks to all the panelists for a good session. So I'm leading UNCTAD's work on e-commerce and development. And I think both questions are very, very pertinent. On the first question, why do we not talk about how to really build the productive capacity? And this is a very valid question. Of course, it is a huge question, of course, which is not directly related only to e-commerce. But I think the point that you raise is very important. E-commerce does not do away with all the problems. What we need to, why we're doing this assessment is really to help governments to have a quick assessment of where we stand with regard to e-commerce. And then it's up to each country to decide what you want to do with the kind of analysis that is undertaken. Currently, in most LDCs, there is no such analysis available. And that is a big problem for governments if they want to have evidence-based policy making. So we said, let's try to come up with a rapid assessment of the key 7 areas that E-Trade for All is focusing on. That doesn't mean that all the problems will be solved by this, but it can be a first step, as stressed by Shamika, to bring the different stakeholders together and get the discussion going in the country. On Senegal's question, you're absolutely right. We can offer these rapid E-Trade assessments. We can also help to undertake more full-fledged strategies. We just launched about a week ago in Cairo, for instance, a new national e-commerce strategy for Egypt. In this case, it took 2 years. And we are at the same time helping Rwanda to develop a national e-commerce strategy right now. But we see that if we only offer this opportunity to go really full-fledged into the development of a new strategy, it will take a long time to try to give at least a basic understanding for many LDCs. Even if we, with the help of Germany, Sweden, and the Enhanced Integrated Framework, at best we will reach maybe 25 LDCs. That leaves almost half of them without such an assessment. Currently, we are not doing a sufficiently good job. If we do the e-commerce strategies for developing countries, maybe we can cope with 3 or 4 countries at best per year. Mm-hmm. But probably about 50 or 60 countries need this kind of assistance. Mm. Is that acceptable? I don't think so. And that's exactly why we took the initiative to launch E-Trade for All. The only way that we can speed up assistance to developing countries is if we work together, if we get the more awareness among the donors and more awareness among the countries to demand this kind of work. We haven't received that much demand for this kind of strategy development in the past, but now it's growing very fast. So we need to have this dialogue, and that's partly also why we want to raise the awareness with these kind of seminars in the collaboration with our partners among developing countries, the private sector, and other international organizations. As stressed by Shamika, we have now 27 international organizations supporting this. We still don't have Asian Development Bank, will be a very good partner. They're coming on board slowly, but you know, it's an effort. We started this E-Trade for All only a year ago, but we're making good progress. So we need the demand, the demanders. The best way for us to encourage donors to give more money is that you're asking for more help, so we can document these demand, and then we can bring it to them.
Thank you, Tobin. I think DSG, you wanted to. Yes. You have a comment.
Je voulais réagir un peu à votre question et on y a répondu en partie. C'est vrai que e-commerce ne va pas régler tous les problèmes de capacité productive d'un pays. C'est impossible. Par contre, quand on parvient à appliquer non seulement de l'e-commerce, mais de la digitalisation, on se rend compte qu'on enclenche un mouvement, y compris dans d'autres domaines. Et je vais vous donner quelques exemples qui répondent aussi à la question de la Suède, le lien avec les femmes, ou en tout cas l'outil sur le Gender Toolbox. Il y a aussi, quand on répand et quand on s'ouvre à la digitalisation, il y a aussi des applications qui ne sont pas nécessairement de la vente de biens, d'acheter et de vendre des biens, mais qui sont aussi, par exemple, des applications qui peuvent, en matière de santé, en matière, par exemple, j'ai des exemples, je participais à un panel avec des femmes à Bucarest récemment, des femmes africaines étaient là, et elles ont développé, à partir d'une stratégie d'e-commerce, des applications pour la santé reproductive, et en particulier liées aux femmes qui sont isolées et loin des maternités ou des dispensaires de soins. Et donc elles avaient elles-mêmes des applications qui leur permettent de pouvoir déjà anticiper certains problèmes. De même, on a vu aussi, on a constaté que des femmes, c'est souvent des femmes évidemment, qui ont développé, y compris des femmes dans le domaine de l'agriculture, qui ont développé aussi la mise en valeur des indications géographiques de leurs produits. C'est une simple façon de valoriser son produit, mais tout d'un coup, ça change et ça upgrade votre produit tout autrement que si vous le vendez sur un marché local avec uniquement vos produits tirés par votre voiture. Et donc, il y a une démarche qui s'enclenche, qui peut donner non seulement, qui ne va pas résoudre tous les problèmes de capacité productive du pays, qui ne va pas devenir du jour au lendemain le producteur de biens, mais qui peut petit à petit développer des applications et des instruments qui vont aider dans des secteurs plus créatifs, qui vont pouvoir donner lieu à des départs d'activités, à de l'entrepreneuriat qui nécessite des compétences, c'est vrai, mais l'e-commerce ou la digitalisation permet aussi avec des gens, et en particulier des femmes, qui n'ont pas nécessairement un très haut niveau de compétences technologiques, de très rapidement entrer dans une manière de travailler ou d'envisager leur développement dans leur propre communauté de façon très différente. Et je pense que ça aussi, c'est un effet bénéfique de l'e-commerce indirectement, dont on ne peut pas mesurer au départ le résultat en termes de GDP, de produit intérieur brut, mais dont on pourra mesurer les effets, j'en suis convaincu, de façon indirecte sur la manière dont, dans certaines catégories de population, on peut bénéficier des bienfaits, entre guillemets, de la digitalisation. Et ça, je pense que ce sont des bénéfices indirects qui sont extrêmement précieux aussi.
Thank you. Thank you very much, DSG. I just also would like to see whether there are any more comments, because we have now 5 minutes to go. A quick one. Okay, ladies first. Please, go ahead.
First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks for the organizer for organizing this very thought-provoking program. I want to ask Shamika about your thought, or maybe their thought, how e-commerce could be, how we could make e-commerce inclusive as well as development-driven. What is that might be your personal or Angter's idea or thought or some perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. Let me be very brief. You know, I would like to buy tea directly from Sri Lanka rather than going into some department store and looking for Sri Lankan tea. I like to order coffee from Ethiopia. I used to live in Ethiopia, and they have the best coffee. I like to order directly from Ethiopia coffee. I like to download music from Senegal. And I know the trade cost will be less, and I will know that my money goes directly to the farmers or the small SMEs, entrepreneurs. And you know, those are the possibilities that this technology brings. But they are only possibilities. You know, they are all potential up there. It's still out there, and it is for us to make it realize on the ground. And that's the journey that we have taken by working with these assessments. So let me.
No, if they are production, if the industries are grown up and SMEs are working, yes, that's fine. From consumer perspective, it's fine. But if we see the small countries, landlocked countries and LDCs, and what about the benefit from country perspective, not from consumer?
As Tobian said, the e-commerce is not a panacea for everything. It's not going to solve all poverty issues, inequality, maternal mortality, illiteracy, and so forth. But it's a very powerful technology that is coming your way. We have to make use of it. We have seen Africa missing out on a green revolution. And we don't want to see yet another technological revolution bypassing low-income countries. It's not, I simply cannot fathom it. So you have a question, please.
Two very small points. The first one, the discussion is going very much in the direction as if e-commerce is a one-way street that will only benefit exports. One has to think also that countries will be inundated by cheap products from big producers. You know what I mean. And the second point, to welcome very much the E4All, Tobin mentioned it, but we need to create a way to exchange more information. UNIDO, for example, we have carried out during 1.5 years an assessment of the IT case in Senegal, and this should be somehow put forward in a more systematic manner. I'm here by coincidence today, so I will get in touch with the coordinator of the AIF and put this information together. But if I'm not here, this information and this link is lost, so it would be important to work on that. Thank you very much.
Definitely, we need to connect the dots. I think that's the whole point of the
E-Trade
E-Trade
would be a very welcome partner in E-Trade for All.
Yeah, we are waiting. I'm counting on you. And would you like, our panel would like to, can I start from Mr. Ziller and then come this way, please? Would you like to add some thoughts?
I think the discussion has proven how important this whole initiative is. And again, I can understand the colleague from Nepal's reaction to my comment on what's happening across the street, but I mean, we're having constant discussions in how far the WTO shall deal with development issues. And I think on one hand we have the SDG agenda, and we have the others agenda with a known chapter just for trade. So therefore, all what we're doing in trade must be sustainable. And if it is sustainable in all three dimensions, it will immediately and automatically also be beneficiary to development.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, to put each and every development problem into the trade agenda, that will not work. And I can't understand why we couldn't do what we shall do, what we are mandated to do by the Doha round, and at the same time deal with e-commerce. You can do one without leaving the other. If this is not done, I fear that what we are doing here will be just one half of what needs to be done, and will be less effective as it could be. It becomes more important, like I said before, but less effective. And therefore, I think we should, as you said, we should try to find ways and means how we can serve all interested partner countries as quickly as possible, to leave no one behind, to come back to the SDG agenda, and at the same time being sophisticated enough and also being coherent in what we're doing here and what we're doing across the street.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me move to Mr. Ryden. Would you like to add some parting thoughts?
Well, just to say that one thing we should raise in this context, and coming back to the question on how could we get more supporters, I think we also need to look at the way we communicate. How do we communicate this? How do we, partners in the project, communicate? How do we? I think we have a lesson here, all of us, to be better communicators of this to a broader audience. And if we do that, and if we are successful, we will get more sort of actively engaged partners, I think. So communication is my takeaway from this session.
It's a very good point. Mr. Ghimire, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just a few things. There are some questions, interesting questions from the floor that I would like to address. As far as e-commerce is concerned, to my understanding, this is the instrument that connects a market, I mean buyers and sellers, ultimately. Whereas, as far as the production part is concerned, that lies with the supply side capacity, that handles supply side capacity. So until and unless we do not have adequate size of items to sell, this e-commerce alone cannot connect properly our market with our importer. So that is what we should understand very well. So first, my focus, what I wanted to give here is development agenda is very, very pertinent as compared to this e-commerce. So that I
Thank you.
wanted to touch upon here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ghimire. So I'm going to give, I mean, we have 0 time now, but we are going into -1. Ratnakar, you close in 1 minute.
Yeah, 1 minute, I'll just finish it. You know, I second actually the proposal made by our colleague from Sweden. You know, the communication is important, advocacy is important. It's actually really necessary to grab those quick wins and, you know, and then move on from there. Small differences, you know, such as the one that I was trying to mention to you in Nepal when I was there, you know, in my own country actually, about a month ago to launch the e-trade readiness exercise. And then the Apex Chamber, they invited me for a talk, so I went there. And one of the things that I mentioned to them is that, you know, if there is a skill mismatch and you guys are here, sitting here and doing nothing, don't wait for the government to, you know, take care of this. Go and have discussion with the university and institutions so that you can, you know, develop a curriculum together that suits your requirement, and university will produce that so that, you know, people, you know, are employable, and it's a win-win solution for universities as well. You know, this is one small thing that can change the entire dynamics, you know, in relation to at least one area of skill mismatch. But there are many other examples. Maybe we'll discuss in different forum, maybe in the e-commerce week, during the e-commerce week in April. So we're looking forward to that.
Yes, so we will continue this discussion at the e-commerce week in April. So please give a big applause to our panelists. Thank you.